Welcome to the Nikki Speaks TV show, the Mental Health Series. Join me on this show as I interview mental health experts and business owners to share their perspectives. Let's explore grief, anxiety, and stress, relationship topics, divorce, adapting to life change, and women empowerment. Join me as we talk about and explore mental health together. This is Nikki Speaks TV. Hey guys, welcome to Nikki Speaks TV, the Mental Health Series. Today, I have a special guest in studio, Dr. Brad, who happens to be a double-boarded sports medicine physician. Not only that, he has worked with professional teams like the NBA Dallas Mavericks and also is a regular guest on the talk show Inside Sports Medicine. Isn't that so great? Well, let's get started. We're going to jump right in. Welcome, Dr. Brad. It's so good to have you in studio on my show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. This is official.
Yeah,
This is, I mean, since COVID's, kind of starting to open up a little bit, it's just good to be out and in person, but I wasn't expecting this. This is nice.
Thank you. I was trying to remember how we met. And I remember Dr. Johnny Mack and Benny Franklin and the men's, is it the men's prayer call that they do?
Yeah, National Men's Prayer Call. Yeah, so Johnny Mack and I have been friends for a while. And he was like, man, I got somebody I know you need to meet. She's awesome. She's fantastic. Yeah. You and I met and we did, we collaborated on a Instagram Live, if I remember right.
Absolutely. Yep, the Queens and Kings of the Comeback series. So,
yes.
So now we're here. And like I said, it's good to meet you in person. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So, I've got my hands in several different things, but the two things that I really have a passion for, one is my career, the other is my calling. So let's kind of start with the calling, which is why I'm here today.
Right.
So I'm a performance coach for men. What that means is I help high-achieving professional men succeed at work and simultaneously win in life.
Wow.
And so I do that through spiritual growth and personal development and peak performance strategies that they can implement into their lives. Mm-hmm. That's the calling. The career is I'm a physician. I'm a sports medicine doctor. I've been doing that for the last decade. Used to serve as one of the assistant team physicians for the Mavericks. And so here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I serve as a non-surgical sports medicine doctor.
Okay.
That's the 9 to 5. And had a passion for that. Used to be an athlete, kind of a broke down athlete now. So I help those who are a little bit. I was a basketball player. I like to still think I'm somewhat of a basketball player. My kids more laugh at me than anything. But it's recreation now. It's interesting because the way I got into sports medicine, because I was injured. I was pretty good back in high school, but I was injured. Since then, I've had knee surgery. I've ruptured my Achilles. So I know all too well the pains, from sports medicine. So I help people. And it's the same thing with what I do for my calling. Like, I know the pains of what it's like to literally succeed in one area of life while it costing so much other stuff, once I kind of got healed on that end, I said, you know what, I'm gonna help some guys there. So, I guess my pain has kind of led to my purpose in a couple different ways. So
that's awesome. And I love that you experienced it yourself so that you can give much more back to the people that you work with. So awesome. Well, you mentioned spiritual growth, personal development, and peak performance.
Yes.
Can you break down each of those aspects of your program?
Yeah. So, part of that for me, I got to tell you a little bit of my story and why it's important to me. So I'd say this is probably several years ago, just like, most of us. And, I work with men, but what I talk about can benefit anybody.
Right.
It's just that I
was like, we need help too. Women need help.
No, listen, ladies, like, everything that we'll talk about today are things that don't just help men. I just like focusing what I do in terms of my coaching, working with men. Okay. But what I talk about can help anybody.
Right.
So, several years ago, just like, most of us who are motivated in the professional world, I was trying to get it. As a young physician, I was out really, building my practice, getting my name out there, working real hard to build my career, what I had been chasing for so long, all the time, money, effort, and energy going into becoming a doctor. At the same time, I had a home-based business, 2 kids, and, we looked like the model family, right? And I was working so hard in that area, but what had happened is I was succeeding, but it was only in one area of life. So
career.
Career in business. And what I didn't realize was happening at the time was at the same time that I was focusing on winning in my career here, it came at the cost of everything else that mattered to me. So it came at the cost of my faith, my family, my physical health. And, I end up getting to this point to where I'm successful, but I'm unfulfilled. And I feel like I can't talk to anybody about it because it's like,
did you not want people to know? Or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm a professional. I'm supposed to have it all together here. Right. Like, I'm supposed to, people are coming to see me for their problems. I'm supposed to be the one to have it all together. And, it was kind of like I was outwardly successful, but I was secretly stuck. And I had, I just didn't know how to deal with it. So for a while I was just really stuck until it just got to a point. I was like, dude, I'm way too unhappy to be where I'm at right now. Like, it's like climbing this Mount Everest, getting there, and the view isn't nearly what you thought it was going to be. And I'm sitting here like, something's got to change. Like,
how did you know you were unhappy?
What's that?
What were the signs that you were unhappy?
Just
in case somebody's listening.
No. So part of what I do as a physician is at the time, well, I still am, I'm double boarded. So I was working as an ER doctor and a sports medicine doctor. Wow. And what I found is that I was becoming extremely cynical when I was going to work, couldn't stand whenever I was going to work, didn't like going to work, was getting very short with patience. But, part of it was just the mirror check. Like, when I looked in the mirror, I knew who was looking back at me, and it was nowhere near the person that I wanted to be. I wasn't being the best husband I could be, certainly wasn't being the best father, my faith was completely gone. I was a different person.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think all of us probably had this vision of who we aspire to be.
Absolutely.
And I got there in one area of my life. Wow. And it all looked great on the outside. But I was just like, dude, life's got to be better. And, I heard a quote from someone that said, what is success really if it doesn't come with fulfillment? Like, is it really success?
Exactly.
And, the answer was no. And so that was when it really, like, this journey started for me of how, I had this vision of being this guy who was successful, but also fulfilled, like getting it all done. And it got to this point where I was like, well, I guess this is just how life's supposed to be. I guess you're just supposed to kind of work your butt off at the expense of all the things that that really matter. I just kind of accepted that. But at some point I was like, no, I feel like somebody has figured this out. Like, to be able to live the life that I literally has always wanted to live, like to be happy, to be successful, to be fulfilled, to give, like all that stuff wasn't happening. And so that was when I was just like, I got to figure this out. And so the journey for me, it really encompassed three things. And it's the three things that I work on. It's spiritual growth, it's personal development, and it's, peak performance. So the spiritual growth for me is I lost my faith. Like, I just wasn't the man I was trying to be as a husband, making poor decisions in multiple areas of my life, right? And so, my faith was always something that really was a foundation for me, but the foundation became real shaky. So I started growing in my faith again. And like, it wasn't just this check off the box. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to church on Sunday, so I'm good. Because during this whole time, I was still going to church. Wow. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Sundays were still happening, but there was no application of Sunday to any of the other rest of my life. So it got to this point where I was like, okay, I really got to get back grounded. And so, through the grace of God, I met some other men who really were able to kind of, walk with me. Yeah. And at the time, there was no like curriculum or structure, but I was just reaching for anything. So one of the things for men is it's hard for us to admit something's wrong and we got to go get some help. You know what I mean? And so.
Why is that? Why do you think?
Well, there's just these masculine.
Is there a lot of pressure?
What's that?
A lot of pressure being a man?
It's just these false, false masculinity that's been portrayed for men. I mean, it's just like, you got to be hard, get up, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Men, you don't cry and all this other stuff, and so, but at some point I was just like, I have to figure this out. Like, it's unacceptable for me to be able to live stuck like this.
Right.
And so I was willing to learn, but I know a lot of guys, man, they'll stay stuck.
You had to be vulnerable, to be able to admit that. And, that's hard to do sometimes.
And I'm at the place now where I don't mind being vulnerable for the sake of carrying the torch so that other guys can be like, I feel what he's talking about. Like, I don't mind it because I know other people have to change.
Right. Is it that you become numb?
What's that?
You become numb almost in life sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Just go with emotions.
So for me, it hurt bad enough to do something, but that was a crossroads for me. If I didn't make a decision then, it just might have gotten to the point to where I got so numb, like there's no turning back. And so I'm trying to catch guys before they get to the point where like they've completely given up. And that's the problem is most of us will keep our mouth shut until the point where it hurts so bad that we have to do something.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, so for me, it was, I started growing spiritually again. A good friend of mine, shout out to Sean. I mean, he was just like, look, he was just like, meet me in my office on Thursday, man, buy this book, meet me in my office, and we're going to start getting it in. And that was kind of the beginning for me to really kind of getting back grounded and understanding my relationship with God, who I really was, my identity, and so forth. So when we talk about that spiritual growth, it's really like developing a quality, sound relationship with God. I'm not talking about, this is not religion. Right. It's not like, we go into church. It's literally understanding how that relationship works. And through that relationship, being able to grow, have a lot of fulfillment, be able to use who you are in that relationship to be able to apply it to every area of life and grow in every area, faith, family, health, wealth, career, everything. So that's the spiritual growth piece. The personal development is really, mindset strengthening. A lot of understanding, just how powerful you really are. And
Tell
just
us how powerful we are.
Oh man, look, don't have me start preaching.
Break it down. Break it down, please.
Most of us, we don't realize the capacity that we have to be able to not just change ourselves, but to change the world around us. We just really have no idea the capacity we have. But in that, most of us don't slow down long enough to understand it and to work on it. We're the common denominator of every single thing that happens in our life. We are literally in every situation that happens in our life. And so the one thing that has to change, and what most people don't realize, you got to look in the mirror and change you. Once you slow down long enough to actually, apply, these principles into your life to be able to strengthen your mind. Because, man, I can't help what happens to me when I walk out of these, out of this studio.
Sure.
I have no idea. I mean, look at COVID, look at Snowvid, all this other stuff that's happened to us recently. There's a lot of things that I cannot change. There's circumstances going to happen, but how I respond is everything.
Right.
And so, it's just,
How do you respond? What is the best way to respond with life? The uncertainty of life, the unknown. There's so many people that struggle with the fear of the unknown, and so they just stay stagnant.
Yep. Yep. Or the fear. They'll just live in fear.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I get. I've been there. Right. The response, a lot of it. So for me, I almost kind of look at it. Life slows down. There's a gap between what happens in terms of a circumstance in your life and how you respond. And in that gap, a whole lot can happen. A lot of people, it happens really fast. Like something happens and they immediately react. Most people react.
Right.
But once you take time enough most people just don't slow down. Like they don't slow down. They're good with just staying busy. And the way I look at it is if you keep staying busy, busyness is like a sophisticated form of laziness of not wanting to deal with your own stuff.
Wow.
So like slow down long enough just to stop and think. And what'll happen is that from that gap between a circumstance happening, COVID, death in the family. I mean, it could be anything that's, major that shakes you up.
Yeah, a life change.
Yeah, a life shakeup.
Right.
That things can slow down long enough for you to just stop and say, what's the best way for me to react right now? What's the best way to react? And then that's a response. That's being able to actually like look at what's happening and say, what's the best way for me what's the best step to take?
Is that something that's internal or something that you seek counsel on just to get clarity? because I may think that I can do this, I can make this change, this move.
Right.
Elicit this strategy. But do you think that it's important to,
I think it's a learned skill that anybody can.
Right.
I mean, this is what I work on with my clients. I mean, I think initially it's going to take, if you don't know what to do, it's going to take, some coaching, some understanding how it works. But, my goal is not to be anybody's guru. My goal is not to be somebody's emergency call, but to equip you, right?
Absolutely.
So that you can actually leave and be like, you know what? No matter what happens in my life, literally, I could care less what happens in my life, I'm prepared. And most people, the unknown, the question is, can I take it? Can I deal with it?
Right.
They're probably like, I can't. And the answer is no, right? There's no hope. But to be able, imagine being able to live life knowing that it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't mean that I don't care about life. I have extreme amount of love, right?
Right.
I love my wife and kids, but God forbid something happened. It's not that I wouldn't be sad. It's not that I wouldn't be emotional and wouldn't feel, but I'm equipped to be able to manage it, in a way that I'll be able to continue life.
Right. Wow, Dr. Brad, great content. You guys don't go away. We'll be right back with Dr. Brad to talk about more about mindset and peak performance. Hey, Nikki Speaks viewers, I want to invite you to go check out Dr. Brad's podcast, The Elite Performance. And we're back with Dr. Brad talking about the 3 pillars and steps of his program. So, Dr. Brad, talk to us a little bit about mindset.
Yeah, so, really it's, a little bit about what we talked about before, which is just basically strengthening people's ability to be able to manage life. Right. But not just deal with the things that happen, but also to be able to be proactive to create. Many people just don't understand just how powerful they are to be able to do many things that they probably haven't even thought to think about what they can do. So we really strengthen the mind, and then peak performance is the last thing that I really help people do. At the end of the day, we are a collection of the habits that we do. Right. So our results and outcomes oftentimes are heavily influenced by the habits that things that we habitually do.
Right. That discipline.
Yeah. So,
consistency.
And so, this is for any area of life. Like, if you're trying to grow in your faith, you have to habitually do things. You have to habitually, be in relationship with God. If you're trying to, improve in your family and relationships, you have to habitually spend time. So there are habits. There are things we can't just, feel good all the time and be like, oh, well, life is better. We actually have to implement, practical steps and things that have to be put into your life so you actually see results on the other end. So, peak performance for me is being able to actually, in a very efficient way, create time and space so that you can start to do the habits that will lead to the results of where you're trying to go in life. Right. Well, and really, let's figure out where you want to go.
Right.
Let's figure out where you are now, where you're trying to go, and let's now put the habits in place so that you can, improve in your faith, you can improve in your health, you can improve in your wealth, your career goals. They're what I call the 7 pillars of peak performance, and it's these are areas of life that we need to be able to address, and those 7
Absolutely.
are, for me, it's your faith, your family, your health, your wealth, your career, your calling, and then there's personal interest, those things that kind of, that you just enjoy doing.
Right, your hobbies.
And so in each of those areas, there are habits that you need to do to implement to make sure that you're being the person that you ultimately want to be. And over time, so many of us feel like we're reaching towards trying to be somebody that we currently not. That's not
the answer.
No. Like people are like, well, I'm just not who I want to be, and I don't believe that at all. I think that person is there, but it's more like a stone that you have to, carve out. The masterpiece is there. You just have to work on shaving some of the things off to get down to the person. Most people are not far removed from who they think they want to be. The person is there. You just got to shed some of this stuff off so we can get to it.
Right.
So, each of these areas we can start to work on and put habits in place so that you can slowly kind of be the artist of your own life to start chipping away. We can get to the masterpiece of the person that's always been there the whole time.
I absolutely love that. I love it. You know what I found during the pandemic? So many of my clients were just suffering, emotionally, physically, mentally.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with those clients that you work with that have just given up on life and are hopeless?
Yeah, we got to figure out where that's, where it's coming from.
Okay. Looking at for the root.
Yeah, so much of what people feel is, and I laugh. Only reason I laugh is because I gave this message recently. I think it was on the National Men's Prayer Call. We were talking about this concept of there's pain that we feel, but there's an underlying problem that leads to the pain. So if you think about medicine, one of the common ideas that we think about is if you can resolve the problem, you can relieve the pain. So I'll give you an example. So a lady came into my clinic recently. She was complaining of knee pain, and her pain was in her leg. That's what she was feeling.
Okay.
When I examined her knee and her leg was fine.
Wow. It
was coming from her back, from a pinched nerve in her back. Now, if I just focus on her knee, which, by the way, I was her third opinion, right?
Oh, wow.
So a lot of people had focused on her pain, but didn't try to get to the underlying problem.
That's good.
So oftentimes people that's what's happened. It's like, well, I'm depressed, or I'm sad, or I'm mad. And I get that.
Right.
But we got to get a little deeper. Like, what are the feelings that are coming as a result of this? What are the things we might be trying to avoid? Right. What are the thoughts that you're having that are leading to that? And what is the underlying belief? There's some sort of underlying belief, which is the root of what's happening. And for me, it's like, I'm like a gardener, man. I'm trying to get to the root of stuff, because if I just pull the top of the weed, look, I joke around about being a gardener, but I don't know a whole lot about gardening. But I know if you just pull it, it's just going to come right back.
Right.
You got to get to the root of it. So for me, I'm constantly trying to dig to try to figure out what's the underlying belief that's got you leading to thoughts that are leading to certain types of feelings that are turning into actions in your life that have you believing that you're depressed, there can't be any hope.
Right.
Right.
Well, you have to be so in tune with your body, don't you think? Like, just, how am I feeling today? Am I, you speak of physical pain, injuries or what have you, but also mental pain. Do I feel sad? Why do I feel sad? Unpack it and, find ways and strategies to deal with it. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, the analogy about the knee, that's just it. That's an analogy that we can apply to any area. I mean, Absolutely. This is, if you're hurting spiritually, if you're hurting mentally, if you're hurting emotionally. Again, most people, if there's anything I can tell people today, is you have to slow down. Yes. Like, you have to slow down long enough.
How do we do that?
You have to slow down long enough to ask yourself these questions, like, what's going on? What's wrong?
Well, I love in your program you talk about a morning routine and how important that is. So, yeah. And I'm one that starts one, but I'm like, maybe I'll try another one.
Well, so...
How do you stay with one?
Yeah. So my wife and I were having this discussion the other day, because she was like, how do you stay so consistent with this routine? All a morning routine is for me is I've created time and space to work on what is the absolute most important area of me and my life that has the greatest impact on every other area of life. Mm-hmm. If I don't carve out time and space to work on me, it ain't gonna happen.
Right.
The most, again, I'm the common denominator of every single thing that happens in my life. Yeah. Right.
That's a quote right there.
Period. Look, none of this stuff is original. I probably borrowed it from somebody. Right. Not probably. I'm sure I stole a whole lot of stuff and just made it mine. But the idea is, I'm the common denominator behind everything. I have to make me better. So that morning routine is simply a space and time that I've created to say, look, I'm going to work on my spiritual growth during this time. I'm going to work on my ability to get grounded, to stop and think. Right. What do I need to do today? Where am I at? What's the best next step that I need to take today in this area?
Strategy.
It's strategy. It's working on my mental health. It's getting, stronger. I'm reading, right? I open up the Bible. I mean, like, there is no way that you cannot grow and see change over time by creating time and space to work on any area of life. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning. We were grabbing coffee, and used to be a big time golfer, struggling in some different areas of his life. I said, if you want to get better at golf, what you going to do? He's like, I got to put in hours.
Train, practice.
Yeah. I said, okay, well, the most important thing in your life is you. Are you creating time and space to, and hours to put into you to get better? And he was like, no, but that makes sense, right? Like, that makes sense. If we don't create space and time to do that, that's the slow down piece. The slow down piece is just, hey, man, or lady, right?
Don't leave
I need
us
to
out.
slow down long enough to figure out when I can work on me. But if you don't believe that is the solution, it's not going to work. And I've been there before. Like, I remember being in this place where it was just like, well, if you think about the pain, if I just focus on my knee and maybe kind of do something with my knee will get better. That's not I got to figure out the underlying problem. So, I used to think, I had to, the things that were wrong in my life was due to stuff outside of me. Like, oh man, if my wife would just listen, our marriage would be better, of course. Right? If my kids just listen to what I said, right? But again, I'm the common denominator. So I went from this idea that I got to work on all this stuff outside of me, which is what most of us believe, to start realizing, man, you know what, I really have to work on me.
Go inside and
and when I figured that out, things started to change. Because for so long, how many times have you or anybody else who might be listening to this, there's some sort of area you're trying to get better at, or some sort of struggle that you're having.
Absolutely.
And you just try to start working on it, and you get nowhere.
Yes.
Nothing changes.
Yes.
Right? I've
Amen
been there.
Corner.
I've been there, right? I try to get more healthy, and I'm just working, right? Nothing changes. I'm trying to grow, my business. I'm working at my business, but nothing happens.
Like running in place.
Yes. It's like a hamster wheel. You stay stuck. Most times it's because we're not getting deeper. You have to look deeper. You can't just, focus on this surface level stuff.
So that takes time.
Oh, it takes time, but it takes space and time that you have to dedicate to making sure that you're working on you.
So your morning routine, is it like an hour or 2 hours?
Yeah, it's about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so it don't have to be that long.
It doesn't. That intimidates
I'm thinking 2 hours.
People.
Look, I was like,
well, sometimes it's an hour, about an hour 15, depending on the day. Sometimes it would be up to an hour 30. I started small. Just start with 10 minutes. Okay. And so I told my friend this morning, I said, hey man, 10 minutes a day. I said, just start with about 10 minutes a day, just enough to slow down. No phone, no computer, nobody around you, enough to just stop and listen. Now,
meditate.
Now for me, it's spiritual growth. So I was like, look, man, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ, and so does he. So I said, listen, man, I need you to just take that time. And I'm not pushing my beliefs on anybody, but this is what I believe. But I said, hey man, create space and time for that. Just to sit and start to build that personal relationship. But start with 10 minutes. It'll evolve over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So good. So good. I wanted to ask you about mental health issues and how they manifest in the body. So have you had any experience with that?
Yes.
Noticed? Yeah. I kind of knew the answer before I asked the question. But
you can imagine, right?
Right.
Yeah. We go back to mindset, right? I mean, there's a couple different things that happen. I think one, first of all, if you believe it is going to, I can't convince certain patients that I have that if they believe they have a pain for some reason, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I can't convince them otherwise.
Right.
Right. So much starts with what you believe in your brain. It will manifest itself in real life. Wow. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. Like my mom, she's just convinced she has digestive issues and that something is wrong. She's had, she's seen gastroenterologists. She's seen just about everybody, and everybody keeps telling her like nothing's wrong. But she's convinced. So if she's convinced,
that anxiety.
Like I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, Mom, you're experiencing something. Again, you're experiencing a pain, but there's a deeper problem, right? So it's interesting. She started doing some acupuncture and some different stuff. She's starting to, kind of wrap her brain around, like, you know what, maybe this isn't just, digestive issues. Maybe there's something else happening. The other thing is, man, physical pain can manifest itself whenever, people are avoiding something mentally or there's some sort of psychological, issue. Mm-hmm. It will manifest itself in the form of, physical pain. You talk about somebody, if you ask anybody who's ever had a panic attack or anxiety, they feel what they experience as impending doom, chest pain,
heart palpitations.
Heart palpitations, can't breathe. These people, when they would come in the emergency room, we put the monitor on them, oxygen's at 100%, heart's completely fine. This would be somebody who's young that we don't expect to have a heart attack anyway, right? Mm-hmm. But because of anxiety, because of some mental health problems, it manifests itself physically.
That's amazing. So what do you tell those patients in those moments to calm them?
So, as an emergency room physician, which I don't practice anymore, it's too much to unpack at the time. Okay. Right? They're like, look, doc, they feel like I'm actively dying here, right? Mm-hmm. So, I got to get them better. But the real thing is to try to point them in some, in a direction, where they can talk to a therapist, get some real help. It's not an overnight thing. Their body has been trained to feel a certain way. Right. Their body is literally familiar with pain and is more familiar with pain than it is not having pain. Man. So when you become familiar that way, it's just a wiring. It's just a hard wiring of the brain to expect pain when you wake up, when you live. When the body is expecting it, it'll feel it whether there's something organic that's happening or not.
That's so true, because I've been doing so much brain research, and we get over 6,000 thoughts a day per person. And if we think negative thoughts, then the brain will reproduce or produce another thought that's just like it. So if we're thinking we're having pain in the morning, then we're going to continually think that, and the symptoms will manifest as well. So let's talk about exercise, though. Yeah. And how its the effects it has on mental health as well.
Yeah. So there's three key areas for me to be able to have fulfillment. For me, it's faith, family, and fitness. Okay. And, the way I look at it is, a lot of people have a lot of goals. I work with high achieving people. So like people who are on the, they're really trying to work hard to get somewhere. Mm-hmm. Like we said, sometimes, on a hamster wheel or feel like they're stuck even though they're working really hard.
Right.
And the reality is, I don't care what goal you have, if you dead, you can't achieve it. So
you got to be living.
We got to be healthy. We got to try to, and so we have to prioritize health. What I've experienced in my own life, I used to be about 235, 240, sluggish. I was lifting weights, but I wasn't at my optimal health. I was kind of, I was sluggish. Mm-hmm. Me exercising actually provided more energy. And it almost seems counterintuitive, right? It's like, a lot of people are like, well, I don't have any energy, or I can't, go through the day. I'm just exhausted, or I'm tired. How is me going to work out going to give me more energy? Right, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it happens. It works, by creating motion, by getting the heart rate up. And then there's an emotional feeling to it. Like there's something when endorphins start to move and go. Yeah. You start to feel better. It's a win of the day. When you have on your list of things to do that day, and it's work out or go on a walk, and you do it, there's something that happens just by knowing you did it. Right. So you feel better just by doing it, but actually going and getting healthier, feeling better, drinking water. This stuff is not, rocket science.
Right. It's just that consistency piece.
Yeah, and everybody wants, it's like, it's not about the new diet or the new exercise or whether you do CrossFit or whether you do, keto or there's some simple things that can be people try to just really change so much at one time. It's like, I'm going to just change everything and start doing keto and start working out for an hour a day, 5 days a week. And it's just like, no, man, like start off with something real simple. Start off with 10 minutes, 3 times a week of just holding a plank for like 30 seconds and, just 10 minutes, right. Drink 1 glass of water. I've been trying to drink more water. I literally started with saying, I'm going to just start off by drinking a glass in the morning. Oh, that started about 6 weeks ago. Now I'm up to a full glass in the morning and a full glass at lunch.
Okay.
I ain't breaking any records.
Baby steps.
I ain't breaking any records, right? I ain't breaking any Guinness Book of World Records for drinking water or anything.
Right.
But, setting the expectation, that's achievable at first, something that's going to stretch me, but not really stress me. And so just drinking a little bit here today, it's a win. Mm-hmm. I'm like, cool, rock and roll, right? After a while, I'm like, you know what? I can expand that to 2 glasses a day. You talk to me a year from now, it might be up to 3.
Right.
But it was more than what it was before I ever started.
Right.
So, to answer your question, fitness is key to fulfillment. It's one of the keys to fulfillment. You got to be healthy in order to be your best self.
Right. Absolutely. Inception, Texas is coming to Dallas, you guys, from Los Angeles to Texas. That's right. Inception is the first mental health gym founded by CEO David McCullough and Tina McCullough from Farmington Hills, Michigan. I opened a franchise in Los Angeles a couple years ago, and when the pandemic hit, I came back to Texas, and now I'm so excited to open again in the future. I would love your support. Click the link below to join our email list and to stay connected for investment opportunities. Well, with stress, let's talk about stress a little bit.
Yep.
and managing that because we have so many changes now, a lot of us, due to the world and what we're experiencing.
Yep.
So how do you manage stress, and how do you work with your clients and patients and encourage them to do the same?
Yeah, so I look at stress as simply a byproduct of something else that's happening, right? So when we think about this idea of, if you think about planting a seed, and once that seed grows, it'll produce a leaf or a fruit. I feel like stress is just the fruit of a bad seed that's been planted, really, and bad habits, and an inability to be able to manage life.
Right.
Stress for one person can be something that's really not that bad for another. Okay. So we got to start changing perspective. And oftentimes what I see when it comes to stress is that people are trying to pour from an empty cup.
Because they don't have the space.
They don't have the space and time. Like they don't have the capacity to do. And so there's so much energy being put out to try and, do the husband or mother thing, or to do the, to be a good spouse, to be a spouse, to do their job, to try to be healthy, and there's expending all this energy, run their business, all of this energy they're expending to try and do all this stuff, but they're not doing anything to really, get energized. They're not slowing down long enough to be able to get their cup full. And so once you can get the cup full, you can start to get to a place to where you can manage crisis. You can manage trauma.
Yes.
So a lot of me working with my client is, becoming self-aware. Like, okay, you stressed. What's causing the stress right now? Why are you stressed? How are you reacting when you get stressed? What are the feelings that you're happening when you get stressed? And what are the triggers? There are triggers that happen. But if you don't stop long enough to identify them, life just seems like this stressful, mess.
Right.
So we got to slow down long enough. Again, if you don't get anything today, it's going to be slow down so you can start to become self-aware. But yeah, you got to, when it comes to stress, it's really just about trying to reframe how you see things.
Okay. Because
typically it's not as bad as what you may think. And even if it is, there's just a better way to be able to manage it.
Right. And so many people are, like I was saying, are dealing with that. And, so that's great information, for them to apply. What is your why? What is your reason, your purpose for all that you do and how you show up in the world?
Yeah, my why in a nutshell is I'm really looking to love and serve others unconditionally.
That's good.
Like literally unconditionally, so that people can experience that and in their own lives be able to pass that same thing on, right? So most of what I started realizing is the reason why I wasn't happy, the reason why, life seemed like a mess and I seemed like it was broken, was that so much of my life was me chasing to try and validate that I was important somehow. Like, I didn't really believe in myself. I had to go achieve and do this thing and get the next thing and be successful so that I can validate something in me that was saying I wasn't worthy, I wasn't valid.
Where does that come from, do you think?
I think it just comes through that. Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody. I mean, for me, it's a unpacked, childhood and stuff like that. But really, it comes from a past. And there's something that oftentimes we are working so hard to try to achieve because there's something in us that's saying, I'm not enough unless I do this thing.
Right. I was on an interview yesterday, and one of the things I talked about is that we want to be seen. Yeah. So we strive so hard. That's where competition comes from. That's where, those driven people, because I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. And look, there's healthy competition. I mean, like it's good to be competitive. It's good to have
for the
drive.
right reasons.
Right. It's good to have drive, or good to have hunger. But, when you're trying to satisfy that hunger, with the wrong things, or it's like the only thing that is going to satisfy this is me working harder, or, this vice that I can't get over. That's when it's unhealthy.
Right.
I can't remember the original question that you asked me.
Your why, your purpose.
Oh, yeah. So the why. So I started realizing that a lot of what I was doing was to try to validate me. And it wasn't until I really started working on myself, saying, man, I've been having the tools and everything that I need to be my best self. Like, yes, but I needed to uncover all of the mess that was outside of me to get to the masterpiece, to where my cup is full every single day based on what I have habitually done and how I've grown, to where I can now pour into the lives of other people unconditionally. When we get to this space where we feel like there's lack, like I need this, I need to achieve this, I need, you're coming from a place of lack.
So true.
Right? Like now imagine being able to have your cup full to where you don't need anything to make you fulfilled. Like, you literally don't need money. You don't need, I'm not saying nothing wrong with money. I like money.
Right.
But I don't need money to be fulfilled and whole. Like, so once you get to this place where, you don't lack, you can literally give unconditionally because I don't need anything, right? Yeah. Like, I don't need anything from you. All I want to do when I come here is give.
That's so
to
good.
You, to anyone else. So,
That's
people talk about my cup runneth over. Like, that's exactly it. Like, I don't, because I'm internally gratified. It doesn't matter.
And how do you get to that point?
Oh my gosh. Well, look, I'll keep it simple. I'll keep it simple. It is through spiritual growth. I believe it is through spiritual growth. It is through developing that relationship with God. It is through personal development, which is being able to strengthen the mind by primarily understanding your identity, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made,
in the image of Christ.
That you are made in the image and likeness,
absolutely,
right, of God.
So there's
if you
so
understood that, if you walk in that, you're gonna walk different. You're gonna talk different. You're gonna make different decisions. Right. Because what people don't understand is that their actions are tied to a belief. The way we make decisions is this: there's a belief. Those beliefs lead to thoughts. Those thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings lead to actions. Actions lead to results. Once you change that belief, the actions and the results change on this end. So we talked about spiritual growth. That's the personal development piece. And then start implementing the habits, the performance of those areas in your life. Sometimes that means you need coaching. Sometimes you need help. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. It was the best thing I could have ever done back then. Again, thank you, Sean, and then all the other people who I've passed the baton of say, hey, man, can you help me out in my life in different areas?
Absolutely.
Sometimes you need coaching. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes you need a community, a community of people around you that are of like mind. Yes, people who can help pull you up so that you can start doing the same thing. So I say all that to say my why is to literally love and serve unconditionally. That means that I'm not looking for anything back from you. It is not conditional. Me giving you is there's no condition to it. Wow. I just want you to have it. And I'm going to serve you the same way.
Wow.
Right. And so when you can experience that, because most people don't experience that, you know, it's very conditional. It's like, look, I'm going to do this if you do for me.
Right.
But when you literally experience unconditional love and service, it's like,
where does this come from?
Yeah. Like, what do I even do with this?
Right.
Right. So that person can now experience it, want more of it, learn how to receive it.
Right.
Not get it.
Right.
Learn how to receive it.
Receive it.
And then go pass it on. To me, it's the one way that we can create change in the world. Right. But again, it starts with me, the common denominator. So the more I can do that in terms of my why, and do that in every interaction that I have with people, Nikki, with you,
right,
with everybody who's in our studio right now, right? Like, I just want to give.
I love that.
And if something comes back, fantastic. If nothing comes back, fantastic. Right?
You sowing seeds.
Because guess what? I don't lack. And when you get to that point, and here's the deal, I'm not there. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm still a work in progress. I'm still growing, right? Trying to get better today than I was, days ago or yesterday. If we can understand that, man, that's really what it comes down to. Is that's my why. It's a long answer, because what I probably said, to make a long story short, I probably said I'll make a long story long, but
long story long,
right, longer. It's just that love and serve people unconditionally so that it can be passed on to others.
I love it. I love it. So at the beginning, you mentioned that you knew you weren't where you were supposed to be, or at the level that you could see yourself be, or become. So how are you now? Where are you at now on that journey? Closer, I'm sure.
Yeah. Life is, I didn't think life could be this fulfilling. I really didn't think it.
That's great.
I had no, like I just mentioned, there's no it. You never arrive, right? You never arrive. I'm extremely grateful.
Forward.
What's that?
Keep moving forward.
Just moving forward and getting better. I'm grateful for where I'm at right now. The relationship that I have with my wife, I didn't know could exist. The relationship I have with my children, the relationship I have with just people, the ability to live and go through life, not needing or wanting, is something that I want other people to experience.
That's your passion. That's why you're so passionate about what you do.
It is, and so when I started off talking about the reason why I do what I do is because of the pains that I've had. I want to, I've been able to kind of overcome. I want other people to experience that. That's exactly what it is. I just, if people understood how they could feel and be and do to the capacity of where I'm at, and I'm not saying I'm anything great, and I say these things not to impress anybody, but just to impress upon them.
Encourage them.
Yeah, that it is possible. Like, it is possible to change. It's literally possible to change. Most people don't. They get to a point where they're like, man, you know what? I think I'm thinking stuck like this. And I get it. I've been there.
Right.
But you can't.
Well, speak to the listener, Dr. Brad, that needs your services, and just doesn't know what to do to make that first step.
Yeah.
How would you encourage them to become your client?
Yeah. And look, I'll tell you this. If you become my client, that's fantastic. If you don't, I mean, that's okay.
Right.
I want everybody to improve, whether it's with me or whether it's with the next guy. I mean, it doesn't matter where you get it, is what I say. But I think the first step is just taking time and space to slow down and figure out where you are now. What is it that you want to improve upon? I don't even like the word necessarily say change, because change almost says something's intrinsically wrong with them.
Yeah.
Right. True. Like something's wrong with me. Right. So just kind of figure out what that is, and then, reach out for help. Even if it's just a simple conversation right now, is be like, like I'm just not at the place that I want to be,
Right.
Start having a conversation, you're not, it's not weakness. Mm-hmm. It's wisdom,
Right.
I'm vulnerable today so that you don't have to be afraid to be. Right.
That's so great.
So that would be the first step. And I would encourage a man just to know that it's possible. Most people don't think it's possible. Most people don't think it's impossible to change because they've been dealing with the same issues and struggles for years.
Right. And why men? Why focus on men?
Yeah.
Not the ladies that need you.
Yeah. No, I mean, this message is for everybody, right? The message, put it this way, the message is for everybody. The method with which I do is with men, primarily. For me, there's just a passion to see men be better fathers, husbands,
so great.
leaders. I just, I got that alpha mentality,
Alpha male, no skip.
Yeah, alpha. And when I say it, I don't mean in a bad way. It's kind of still go getter. So I relate to those guys best. Okay. Some of the energy that I bring. So I relate to them best. And I like working with the guys who are very similar to me. Like, I am really trying to get it. It's just coming at too great of a cost. And the other thing I see is that if nothing against my ladies at all, but the way I see it is if I can get the men to really understand what it takes to what I call be elite. A lot of my brand is elite, around elite, which is how to be simultaneous, successful and fulfilled, how to spiritually grow, personally develop, how to literally be your best in every area of life. If I can get men to understand that, I feel like the world can change. I really do feel like the world can change. We can be better leaders.
Absolutely.
We can be better in every area of life. And I just feel like for me, in terms of what I can do to really dive in and focus on, it would be men.
Right. It's a trickle-down effect, too.
What's that?
I said it's the trickle-down effect, too.
Yeah. Okay. And here's why I say that. Here's why I'm focusing on men. When I look at my own family and the transformation in my family, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning. He was like, man, me and my wife, we're just not on the same page. Like, I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to do some things. And I'm like, hey, man, like, can you come with me? And she's like, kind of not feeling it, Yeah. I've been in the same space, with my wife as well. When I started taking extreme ownership, what I mean by that is when I say, what's happening in my house is as a result of what I'm doing somehow. I said, I'm not going to try and change somebody else. Maybe if I continue to change, the world around me will change. Well, here's what happened over the course of several years. As I started doing a morning routine, as I started getting in the Word, as I started changing, guess who started doing the same thing?
Right.
My wife.
Because you're
did.
Modeling that behavior.
I'm modeling the behavior. When that happened, guess who now? My kids have these little, kind of caulk boards and little words they can put up there. I look in there and I see somebody, put scripture in there,
Okay.
Philippians 4:13, I can do all things, I see my daughter put
scripture.
that on there, right? like I see things happening and then I start seeing change in other people because I decided to. Doesn't happen overnight, but it happens. Right. And it didn't happen with me trying to force somebody to do it. I said, you know what? Let me work on me and see what happens around. Most of us, our external world will shape us. Most of us. And I get it. For me, the external world shaped me for years. Right. But you can literally, as you start to grow internally, shape the world around you. And that's exactly what happened. So what I say is if I can get to men, the core of, at least that area of the household, I can work on that area and teach them the exact same thing so that they can change and the world around them will change. And
so powerful.
That's why I focus on men.
I love it. Well, tell the audience how they can get in contact with you, how they can follow you and be engaged in your business.
Yeah. So you can follow me on probably the two biggest social media for me is going to be LinkedIn. And Instagram, but I'm also on Facebook. It's at Dr. Brad MD, DRBRAD MD. I launched a podcast over the last couple months. So the podcast is a really good way to just get the messages. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like I'm coaching on my podcast. So I tell people, free. I'm like, look, if you want to start getting, in essence, free coaching, go to my podcast, start listening. There's some free things that I offer on there. You talk about a morning routine. I help people develop a morning routine.
Oh, good.
So, but if people just plug into the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, start listening on a weekly basis, and I've got some interviews and stuff on there. A lot of what I have on there is just a lot of what we're talking about today. Okay. And we talk about strategy. I do talk about how-tos. I literally, like I said, coach you through the podcast.
Wow.
So listen to the podcast. Podcast is called Elite Performance with Dr. Brad. It's misspelled on purpose because the men part is it's capital. So Elite Men, because that's my coaching program is Elite Men. But Elite Performance with Dr. Brad. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcast and on what's the other one? Google Podcast.
Yes.
And so you can reach out to me that way. And look, DM me right. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to connect with you.
Right. And I love that you're so approachable, sometimes with your expertise and, your titles. And I know it's not about the titles, but, it's nice that someone can talk to you and reach out to you.
Reach out to me. Literally, I tell people, book a one-on-one. You can book a free one-on-one session with me. If you go to my website. But I think a lot of people are looking for something, right? Like, what can I just get?
Well, it shows your heart and the truth behind your mission, your vision, your purpose, to be able to help people.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Unconditionally.
This is good stuff. See, I warned the people in here. See, like I warned everybody. I was like, look, the energy is about to come today. So,
right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah. So, thanks, Nikki.
Thank you. Hope you guys love this week's episode on the Nikki Speaks TV Mental Health Series show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and TikTok. And my web address is linktree/Nikki.speaks. Can't wait to see you next time.